everybody. I'm Division Chief Gerald Vetter of the Oaklawn Police Department. Joining me today is Chief Vittorio, our Chief of Police. We're calling this press conference so we can provide you guys with some facts as we know them today concerning a use of force incident that happened at 95th Street and McVicker Avenue yesterday involving two of our officers. At the conclusion, Chief Vittorio will be taking a few questions, and at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Vittorio.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Hope I don't mess up your microphones here. All right. On July 27th at approximately 5:30 p.m., an Oaklawn officer, while on patrol, observed an occupied vehicle in the 9500 block of Austin. He could detect an odor of burnt cannabis emanating from the vehicle with no front registration. As he made a U-turn to investigate, the vehicle also made a U-turn and entered the parking lot at 9545 Southwest Highway. The officer initiated a traffic stop on the vehicle. As he approached the vehicle, he could detect the odor of burnt cannabis. He first spoke with the driver and requested him to step out of the vehicle so he could pat him down. The driver complied, and after being searched, stepped to the rear of the vehicle. The officer then asked the rear driver's side passenger to exit the vehicle. The passenger was a 17-year-old male juvenile of Middle Eastern descent. He appeared to be nervous and had an accessory bag draped over his shoulder. When requested by the officer to place his hands on the car, he took off running. He was apprehended by an assisting officer at 95th and McVicker. The officer was able to take him to the ground, and a struggle ensued. The offender immediately grabbed his bag and tried to open it. He was given verbal commands which he did not comply. The initial officer then arrived. Fearing that he was reaching for a weapon in the bag, the officers attempted to physically gain control of his hands. He would not comply and continued to attempt to access the bag. The offender was then drive-stunned and taken into custody. A gun was discovered in the offender's bag, a Raven Arms P225 .25 caliber semi-automatic weapon. It was also loaded with 3 rounds of ammunition. The offender was transported to our detention center, where a THC vape cartridge was also located on his person. He subsequently admitted to smoking it earlier. The offender and an officer were both then transported to Christ due to injuries sustained during the incident. This is still an open investigation and charges are pending. Now we'll play a video of our car cameras for you and then take some questions after that.
They were smoking weed over there. So, hey, do me a favor, please step out.
They're just hanging out over here for me.
So if they don't have anything crazy in here, then it's no big deal. Put your hands on the car for me. Mind if I search you real quick? You don't have any knives or guns on you, right? Nobody else, right? Whose backpack is at the back? That's yours? Just leave it there. Just hang out at the back of the car for me. Can you step out? Hands on the car. Anything crazy on you? Keep your hands up on the car for me. Stop running! Stop! Hey, stay there! He's going to McDonald's.
Yeah, we got him for sure at this table.
95 McVicker, 95 McVicker, next to McDonald's.
Hey, Ray, pause it. Can we kill the lights for this portion? Kind of hard to see with the lights in. So at this point,
Could you back up? Can you
Yeah, could you back it up a little bit, Ray?
Thank you.
That's not can, motherfucker.
95 McVicker, 95 McVicker.
Video, you can see the subject's right hand. He maintains constant control of that bag. He's not releasing that bag as they're giving him, as the officers are dealing with him and giving him commands. He's still trying to gain access to that bag. Go ahead, Ray.
9-5 McVicker, 9-5 McVicker. Next to McDonald's.
Yes, I can,
Put your hand behind your back. Do it now. Here, pressure point. Okay, pressure point. Pressure point. Put your hand behind your back. Do it now.
Pause it, Ray.
And as the third officer respond, you could tell him saying pressure point, which is in a striking maneuver. It's a pressure point that they put behind the ear to try and gain compliance. Okay, Ray.
Do it now.
Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
Got it. Got it. Let me watch this.
Then they were able to cuff him.
But he doesn't stop resisting them until he's tased. They search him.
What happened to the audio at this point?
One second. At this point here is where he pulls the gun out of the bag.
They were smoking weed over there.
Okay, you can pause it, Ray. Lights, please. So as DC Vetter said, I'll take a couple questions.
Couple questions. First of all, do those officers have body cameras?
No, we don't have body cameras.
So this is the only video that exists of that incident from the police department?
Yes, we only have in-car cameras at this time.
And to that person's question, what happened to the audio at the end of that video?
That I don't know.
It must have been edited out. We can see if we can get the copy with the additional audio in there.
Have the officers been involved in this, have they been placed on paid leave, annual leave?
No, not at this time. The one officer still hasn't been released medically.
What injuries did he suffer?
Honestly, he has just gotten back from his doctor's appointment. I haven't seen the note yet, so I couldn't tell.
Was he like hospitalized?
No, both him and the offender went to Christ Hospital last night. Our officer was released slightly after midnight, but then was told to follow up with our occupational health today. And he had an afternoon appointment, and so I honestly don't know what his status is as of yet.
No, Chief, I have a question.
Yes.
I have two parts. A total, in all, how many officers at the end, from the point of running and picking up the gun, responded to this call? That's the first question. How many officers in all?
I only know of the 3 that are on camera. I haven't had a chance to look at all the radio logs yet, but there were several officers that were responding when he was calling out a foot pursuit. I don't know the exact number. If I had to guess, I'd half.
Is there any investigation into the
Hold on. Hey, one at a time. Let's be respectful to each other.
Looking at that video, from what your training shows, can you explain to us what was done right, in your opinion?
Once they feared for their safety and they had reasonable suspicion that he was armed with a weapon in that bag and he was not complying and he was trying to open that bag, they were in fear of their safety that he had a weapon. So at that point in time, they used control tactics. They used leg strikes. They used strikes. They tried to release his hands. He wouldn't release them. The second officer then drive stunned him with a taser, which is part of his training. At that point in time, the offender then complied. He was cuffed, and then, as you saw, he was put in the squad car.
At any point did the officers say anything about, do you have a weapon? 'Cause I don't think I heard that on that video. Did they ask him if he had a weapon or?
I believe they were just telling him to release the bag, show us your hands.
What's your response to the community today calling for those officers to be fired for excessive force?
I would say let the investigation take its course.
Are they being investigated, the officer's conduct?
There will be a use of force review, yes.
Who's gonna do that?
Right now, it's internal.
Chief, Nate here, Fox 32. I just have a couple of questions, and so I'm trying to understand the guy is on the ground, and it appears that I know you're saying that he was reaching for his bag. Of course, we can't really see that from our.
I know, it's tough, it's tough to see from both angles.
I understand, but it appears that he's on his back.
No, he was on his stomach.
Or on his stomach, but you're saying your officers feared that there was a gun inside.
Yes.
How did they know that? If he had never
The,
gone
the way that he ran and the way when they chased him and then when they eventually caught him, he initially went for that bag and tried to open it.
But at that time, Chief, you all did not know what was in the bag. You just knew that he had a bag, correct?
At that point, yes.
Okay, can you talk about apparently, I spoke to one woman who said that there have been tensions in this community with Arab Americans for some time. Can you speak to that about just the protest that happened today, 200 or 300 people, a lot of folks saying that this is racist. I know you've been, how long have you been chief here?
2 years.
2 years. Have you all done anything to kind of quell the relationships between the Arab community?
I have known of no other racial issues with the Arab community. We're a very diverse community now. We have African Americans, we have Arabic, we have all kinds here. There has been no protests of this kind since George Floyd, the summer of George Floyd.
Well, finally, can you just speak to folks who say, folks in the Arab community say that they feel oftentimes that they are unfairly targeted by this police department. Can you speak to that at all?
I have no knowledge of that, and at any time, if they feel they've been targeted, they're more than welcome to come in and speak to us.
Chief, can you tell us, it says at the bottom of your statement, charges are pending against that 17-year-old?
Yes.
What charges?
Well, we first need to interview him, and with the juvenile system, we have to actually physically talk to him first, and he has to be released from the hospital before we can proceed with our investigation.
But you intend to charge him?
Oh, yes.
And what's the status of the officers involved, the 3 officers in that situation in the video?
Like I said, one went to the hospital, another was injured, the other is back at work.
And none of them will be placed on administrative leave?
No.
Can you tell us anything about those officers, how long they've been with the department?
The one officer has been with the department for approximately 6 years. The second one, he's been with us about 12. He's a field training officer, and the third one, he's probably been with us about 50.
So several dozens?
Yes, there's experience there.
And then this is the gun you say that was in that bag?
That's correct.
Was it loaded at the time?
Yes, it had 3 rounds of ammunition.
Chief, I think I saw the officer that was opening the doors, the guy was outside today. So he is back to work, he did not miss, so I'm assuming then that these officers, and it sounds like you're describing an arrest that went right. Do you see anything on its face that indicates these officers did any excessive?
Well, like I said, we do reviews on all use of force, but we need to talk to them first, and the one that hasn't even been medically cleared, I haven't been able to talk to. So we'll do a use of force review, and if we see anything wrong with it, we'll take a look at it.
But Chief, at this point, do you see anything? Is there anything in what you've seen so far? Obviously, you want to do more investigation. Is there anything that you see that concerns you? Or at this point, since these officers are still on duty, you feel that they acted properly?
Yeah, what concerns me is a 16-year-old running around with a gun. That's what concerns me.
Chief, last question for me. I understand the 16-year-old, but and we'll talk to that family. Specifically, your officers, it's concerning to a lot of people, specifically, in the community that...
I've already answered this question.
I haven't answered it. There is a guy on the ground. They hit him in the head several times and tased him. Is there anything from here on out in terms of training that you would have done differently? That's all. In all honesty.
No.
Can you talk about the extent of the officer's injury? You say went to the hospital. I'm trying to figure out in the video, where do we see injuries to the officer? Is it something that we did not see?
Like I said, I can't comment on it because I haven't seen the medical reports.
So did they just go to the hospital because it was a tussle on the job? And
Yeah, they were injured in the incident. They went to go get checked out. And like I said, they were released late last night. He went to his doctor's appointment today, so I literally haven't talked to him yet.
Chief, I apologize. Listening to you, said one of either the 12-year veteran or the 15-year veteran. Can you elaborate a little bit more? You say he's involved in training?
Yes.
What type of training, and does he actually get involved in training to diffuse situations that we're looking at right here?
Yes,
About his training.
he's a field training officer.
Okay.
So he trains new recruits.
And was that the original officer that responded, or a third one? What is his role in this?
I believe it was the second.
Second, so he was involved in the original pursuit following this kid after.
No, I guess he would have been the first one at 95th and Main.
So he was first at the scene.
Mm-hmm.
So the field training officer was the officer that initiated the traffic stop?
No.
All right, I'm going to interject right here. Let's stay on course of talking about the incident yesterday instead of the training status of the officer. I understand what you're trying, I understand you're asking questions, but you have to understand that we have a lot of things going on here right now, and the purpose of this press conference is to discuss the incident yesterday, not somebody's training status.
No, I need to know which officer threw the punch to the kid that the neighbor, the community is upset about. Is that the officer that is overtraining? Yes or no?
No.
No.
And that's not what you were asking.
No,
But
that's what I was
let's
trying to get
let's
to.
stay on course,
So
okay?
if I could ask.
This will be the
you're
last question.
describing strikes, right? Blows to the head, that is like punching someone in the head is a.
Once they feared that there was a weapon in there, that then turned into a deadly force incident. So had the offender drawn that weapon, he could have shot him. Or were they supposed to wait for him to pull it out and then?
Chief, roughly how often do you all do traffic stops for cannabis? Cannabis, just, I'm just curious.
Cannabis?
Yeah.
They
I mean,
regularly,
how many would you say approximately?
I don't have that number offhand. All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Question, Chief. Is it normal procedure to have an internal investigation to leave officers on the